And here we are. Good evening. Welcome to 3D Learner. I'm Mira Halpert and my husband Mark Halpert. We're the directors and founders, presenters of 3D Learner, a program specifically designed for the smart right brain kinesthetic hands-on learner. We're glad to have you with us tonight. We're going to be talking tonight specifically about goal setting for outrageous success for students for fourth grade and above. Now, Tuesday night, we talked about kids from the third grade and below. We'd love to if you have a family that involves a child at that age as well as this age, but if you have that age, it's a little bit different perspective. Please look for it on certainly on our YouTube channel, and I think also on our Facebook
Well,
Lives that are in the
we'd like
history. Is
you
that
to,
right, Mark?
we'd love you to go to our YouTube channel. And if you
And
like our
like us.
presentation tonight and want to recommend it to somebody else, invite them to go to our YouTube channel. We'd love you to subscribe. Our goal is to get to 100 subscribers by the end of the month, and we'd appreciate your help.
Yes, that we would. Anyway, we hope you've had a great start to your school year and that your kids are settling in. If they are not, and if we are finding that all of a sudden we're getting calls from parents that are like, I thought this year was going to be different, and it's not, we're glad you're here with us tonight.
So some of the kids we help, or a lot of the kids we help, are what we call right brain visual or kinesthetic learners. That's the kid who learns best when they see and experience information. Now, these kids almost always have one or more what we call executive function problems. That is, they may have problems remembering things they heard, even if they have great visual memory. They may have a problem processing information slower than others. They may have a problem with attention or organization and planning. And they often have a visual processing issue. They may also have an auditory processing. But it turns out the kid that's right brained, which means there's more activity on that side of the brain that controls imagination, visualization, problem solving, has better peripheral vision, but often struggles when the eyes try to converge on the written word. And frustration and anxiety are running rampant. If your child is frustrated, welcome to the crew. They missed a lot of their education, what should have been their education the last couple of years. We're finding kids really anxious, really frustrated, and so are parents, so are teachers, and so are parents.
Right. Overwhelm might be the way to be able to truly call it in every sense of the word. And it's like, and for these kids, it's where do I start? What is it that I do? And sometimes the schools, and that's really why we're talking about working collaboratively and that using an outside program, is that the kids, they don't know where to start. And sometimes the schools just only have one particular tool that they can use, and all of these others, and especially the social emotional anxiety frustration part, is something that they cannot address at all. But
And to be
boy,
honest, if you look at this graphic, they don't teach the way the visual and kinesthetic learner learns.
right.
They might identify but rarely address the working memory, processing speed, attention issues. They almost ignore the visual processing issue, and then they're overwhelmed and really don't have the capacity to deal with the anxiety and frustration. Now,
And the numbers of kids that are like this.
against that backdrop, these kids often have the potential to make significant gains with the right parent-professional partnership. So it's not like there's not hope, but it's very hard to do it just with a hardworking parent, kid, and schools. Now, research, this is a major longitudinal study. This was done on kids with learning disabilities. Okay. And what they found, which was kind of startling, was 45% of them were 3 to 4.9 years below grade level, and an additional 21% were 5 or more years below grade level. And this was done pre-pandemic, so the numbers may be worse today. Now, some people may argue that's an issue with poverty or with the economically challenged population. We're going to tell you we've seen these kids every year, more this year than ever before.
That's how we got into it in the first place, right?
And by the way, we were on this graph. We were in that 45% when 27 years ago, they told our daughter she wasn't college material, and Mira became a mom on a mission and developed what's been known as the 3D Learner program that helped our daughter improve her reading comprehension 4.2 grade levels in 7 months. We've had a number of kids come close to and some equal that kind of gains. So it's really possible. Okay. And it's possible to both make those significant gains and to ignite a love for learning.
Well, it's kind of this big circle that actually, well, a spiral that we'll show in a bit. And it's like when these kids get excited about something, it breeds success, breeds success. So yes, then they want to know more. They want to be able to get when they realize that when we use their abilities and 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 engage them and have some sort of prior knowledge about something, it's really amazing about how they use the skills that they have that they didn't know that they could do it because they're trying to be able to learn like everyone else. And that just doesn't always work that way.
And then executive function, visual processing issues are holding them back. If you teach me a rule and I can't remember it,
It's really difficult. And it's never consistent. That's a big problem.
and
So
our
how do
key
we
is
engage
with
these
that
kids?
before
Yep, sure.
our
Sorry.
key is if we go back to the one preceding one, it's really informed, empowered, and proactive parents to make the difference.
That's
It's
why we hope you're
often
here tonight.
that's why we hope you're here, and also why we hope you'll share this information with others if appropriate.
Okay. So how do we engage these kids? How do we create bull hooks? It's not just one. Well, first of all, we really relate to these kids. We listen to their story. We listen to their strengths. We listen to what frustrates them. And we truly and we go where the kids are at. You may have noticed that some of your kids are what I professionally call consistently inconsistent. They're really good at some things and really not at others. And you just shake your head and go, how is that really possible? The truth is, the kids don't choose that, right? They really want to be able to succeed. And when we listen to them, and we don't put them down and we really we value what they're saying because sometimes they have the wrong words, but if you what I call sort of listen between the lines, they're telling us what their needs. In fact, I think our most poignant line, right, was when what started this whole program said was when my husband turned to my daughter and said, what is it that she wanted to be? And she didn't just and she said, I want to be the teacher I never had. That's a far cry from I want to be a teacher. She knew exactly that she actually hadn't been taught the way that she learned, the way that she got it. And that was 27 years ago. I'd love to be able to say that things are really different. And there's certainly pockets of places that are, but overall, that's not what's happening with these kids. We engage them from their prior knowledge, their passions, and they all have them. Like, what is it that they want to learn, and what is it that they are, in fact, visualizing, but they aren't necessarily putting those tools together when they're reading and when they're learning. We also identify and address their challenges, not to be able to have them fit and learn the way everybody else learns, but we need to be able to identify key challenges that are holding them back that make it possible for them to be able to learn. There is always, if we have learned anything in the last number of years from neuroscience, we know there are always different pathways. We need to stimulate those and get those going so that these kids can be extremely successful, of which they can. We'll show you at the end of our presentation just how successful some of these kids alone worldwide, some of these right brain, kinesthetic, hands on creative thinkers are. Oh, by the way, we also help with non academic skills. Right? If your kids have the incentive that they want to be able to be on a team or they want to be able to play musical instruments or be artists or dancers or whatever, it's amazing how some of the same skills that they are innately great at, they're just that one little piece that's holding them back. And that key is what's holding them back both in their non academic skill as well as their academic skills. And you
And we've
take
had
that piece, and it's amazing what can happen.
and we've had a number of students who are down in themselves, but they might like a skill like baseball, And because we work on attention, we work on visual processing, we work on mental toughness, all of a sudden the kid becomes a better baseball player. And it spills right over to academics because success breeds success.
Right.
And we also make our work relevant and effective to them so they see gains relatively quickly.
Here's our 3D learner upward spiral. It starts with, what is it that you want for your child? Certainly, we want them to feel comfortable. And I use the word safe, but that's taken on a whole new meaning at school. But yes, they need to be able to feel comfortable at school. How many times have you been told, especially for your middle or high schooler, that, oh, your child just didn't raise their hand or they didn't advocate for themselves? That's because they're not comfortable. They've observed other kids who have asked questions and maybe the teacher raised their voice, or maybe it seemed like it raised their voice to them. Okay, let's remember that this is that their reality, their perception is their reality. So they're certainly not comfortable to be able to do that. They can be and should be in classes with high performing friends, right? Everybody's we've talked to the kids. The kids are smarter than their present performance is happening, I guess
Well,
and they really can be.
one sixth grader who was reading at the second grade level when he started with us, and 4 months later he was reading at the sixth grade level, and all of a sudden he got in classes with the smarter kids as friends. And he said it's amazing how much more you can learn when you're challenged, when you with your friends that are smart, and when there are less behavior problems. Because let's face it, the classes that have kids that
Right,
are struggling often have behavior problems. So it turns out to be a huge benefit to get into those classes where the work's more challenging, and also where sometimes the teachers are better.
right. Obviously, the ability to understand and engage in what's being taught. It obviously, as Mark just said, it totally improves their self-esteem. We talk about this ignite this love for learning. How is it that every child, and I've said this for years, right? Every kid goes to a school pretty really excited for learning, and to be able to have that fire burn out is just so sad. So we want to be able to get that back for these kids, because when you find that, you'll be amazed, right? I think we've all observed it in our kids that when they're excited about something, they want to learn more. It's like they can't absorb enough. We obviously want reading fluency, vocabulary, and reading comprehension to be at or above grade level. We talked about the other night about success by third graders sooner. When kids are reading at grade level, the younger the grade level is possible. So if you're beyond, it's not like there's no hope, but we know that once they can attain that grade level, reading across the board, it's a the success just keeps
And there's
growing.
another really interesting point here, which is we've had a number of students who are very smart, some gifted, who are reading at grade level, and they have the potential to do so much better. We had one mom whose child was reading at the 48th percentile, and the principal said, she said, "What else can I do? There must be something more I could do to help my daughter succeed." And he said, "Somebody has to be average."
Right.
And that, God bless that mom, she called to refer to us. We said, "That's exactly the kind of comment that can trigger you to take the action that'll change your daughter's life." And sure enough, they did the program. Her daughter went from the 48th to the 95th percentile. She went from a shy, reserved kid who was quite anxious to an outgoing kid who played in the high school band, was in the marching band, just became a totally different person because her mom decided to reject that advice.
Right.
Then math
Well,
word problems. We've probably had 20,000 people fill out a questionnaire on is your child good at math word problems. Only two parents said their child it was no problem, and they were probably wrong. Okay, math word problems for the kinesthetic learner turn out to be a nightmare
it's
because
that language piece.
it's that language piece, it's the vision piece, it's the I'm rushing through it, I make a lot of stupid mistakes. It's 1,000 different reasons, but math word problems seem to be one of those flashing red signals. And then homework time and stress. We've had parents come to us saying it should take 2 hours or 2.5 hours for the kid to do homework, and they're up till 2 in the morning. They're up to 2 in the morning because they're reading really slowly, or they weren't paying attention in class. They had to relearn the material. The truth of the matter is, if you corrected and addressed all those, homework could be done in much less time with much less stress and require far less involvement from a parent. And then, as we've said before, it's magical when we talk to a kid. He said, "I want to be good, better at baseball, or better at swimming, or better at dancing, or better at martial arts." And you can show them how what you're doing is going to make them better there. They're engaged. Okay. And by the way, this is true for athletes, because we've had kids that went on and got college scholarships, as well as a fifth grader who had never knocked in a run in his life. And on the third week, his mom said, until this week, the kids didn't want him to show up. They hoped he wouldn't. And she said this week he knocked in 3 runs, and now he's going to be batting fourth, which for those who don't follow baseball is the cleanup spot. It's the best spot in the order, because all of a sudden he was timing the ball and seeing it right. Again, it helped his sports. It helped his academics. And we use this upward spiral because so many people talk about the downward spiral of struggling. But when a 3D learner has a lot of aha moments where they discover things, it gets reinforced, and all of a sudden, success breeds success. Now, key goals in the assessment process. There.
Well, we obviously, our huge goal is to develop an I want to attitude. When kids actually sort of feel it, and you can sort of see it in the expression in this kid's head, in this kid's body. Our assessment looks at how their kids learn best, where their strengths and challenges are, where different executive functions are, where their present level of reading is, and what it needs to be able to take to be able to connect with their kids. So that, yes, that it starts with that I can. It's sort of interesting when we explain to the kids about just what words trigger pictures, which trigger emotion, and what happens when you say that you can't do something versus when you say you can't. Your brain and body have this pathway that goes back and forth that actually has to be able to work to be able to make it possible, so that when we tell our just even tell ourselves, but when we make well to be able to make it I can, that can change everything.
What's fascinating, we use something called the structure of intellect, which was developed in World War II, initially to help decrease the failure rate on the pilot program, and because they needed pilots to pilot all the airplanes. And the test we use has 26 different subtests, and a student in 7th grade found out that he had 11 different subskills that were at the college level.
Right.
And he was struggling, but he never realized he was that smart. So a lot of what we're trying to do is show the child how they learn best, how smart they are in certain areas, but also there are things we can improve. They're not good at those skills yet. And our phrasing is very specific to that, because all those skills that we talk about, what's working memory processing, speed, attention, visual processing, can be improved. And when you improve them all at the same time, you have a spiral up.
All right. Just to be clear, we're talking about various underlying learning abilities. This is not sort of a learning style. This is not what this is sort of certainly evaluation skills. Am I really good at making certain kinds of evaluation skills and not others? And what is it? Is it language that's a problem? Am I good at transitioning from one place to another? Am I good at seeing things from a different perspective? All of that goes into the learning process. And what's fascinating is we aren't really looking at that. We're really looking, in schools, what we're really looking at is curriculum and things to be able to master, material to be able to read, master, and write.
But we're also
completely different from the underlying learning process.
When they look at psychoed schools, they're looking for whether or not the child qualifies for special ed. So they're looking for what's wrong with the kid.
Right.
rather than what's right with the kid.
So remember before when I said, let's see how really special or these visual kinesthetic learners are. Some can have the diagnosis of dyslexia, some not. But they're really very creative and imaginative people. Look at this list of men and women, girls from around the world, from history to who we look to in the future. They need actually manipulatives to be able to and or pictures in order to be able to learn. They've got to see how it fits together. They uncanny memory of remembering places from a really long time ago, and they thrive on active learning. So, as we described for the younger kids, they're really good at taking things apart. Sometimes
Not
they put
always good
things
at
back
putting them
together.
back together.
But or finding different ways to be able to do it. Let's remember that picture. My hero, who's actually not on this, is was Mr. IKEA. And for those of you that really don't like them, and it's like, oh, I hate those directions. Mark will tell you that I sort of thrive on it. It's like, yes, this is now they've gotten to be really easy to be able to put together. But what's fascinating for me when I do that is I'm always sort of thinking, how do they come up with how it is that these would go together? So that's what these kids do. So they're always kind of looking around different kinds of assignments. Maybe they don't do homework assignments exactly like the way the teacher wanted them because they can think of a different way. Well, better way for them, as you will. So therefore, they can appear much smarter than
Well,
both
they
their
are
reading.
much smarter.
Well, they are much smarter than their reading comprehension or any test scores could ever indicate. But as we said, they also have they also have these executive functions that are actually sort of all the way up here at the top, sort of like an executive is at the top of a company, right? So that is here I said that they really have wonderful memories of connecting places and things and experiences, but the challenge really is, can I bring that up when I need it at that particular moment? We all have these lapses of, gee, I know that person, but I can't remember their name. At least that's something I do. Being able to, and then 45 minutes later, you remember who that was. The point really is that for school and for learning, kids obviously need to be able to have that skill, be able to come together. They're able to how talk about attention or focus. And sometimes the kids really do have ADHD, have attention difficulties, and that is definitely part of their charm. But how do we manage that? And how do kids learn to be able to have that self control?
And part of it, people often will say to us, but the kid can hyper focus on Legos or a video game. And as Tom Brown, a great psychiatrist from Yale, said, these are exactly the kids that have ADHD. They can hyper focus on that which interests them, and they can pay attention to that which is boring or frustrating. So that's
Right.
a very common thing. And we talked before again about skips, words and lines, words and lines when reading, and it's very, very common in this population, which, by the way, relates back to processing speed. It turns out they read because they're skipping words and lines when reading. So when you correct the visual processing problem, all of a sudden they can process faster.
It can also be that they aren't hearing things correctly. And I'm not talking about it's an auditory processing that they aren't processing that's the words that we're saying to people. So verbal direction can also seem like it I'm going to say go in one ear, but it sort of goes around them. So it's all of the visual and auditory processing work hand in hand together. You need to be able to build both of them. And because then when they don't get any of that, can you imagine, or if they get bits and pieces of either one, can you imagine how frustrating that must be? So therefore they develop um, major anxiety and or depression, and we're seeing that so much more in younger and younger kids today. It is time to be able, and this is where parents are key about recognizing it and doing something about it. This is not about, oh, my kid was better yesterday, so maybe it's gone away. Mm-mm, it's not. I had to tell you, it's time to be able to make sure that you as parents are taking that particular piece and using that to be able to press forward to search out exactly what's going on with your child.
And one of the things we use is what's called the safe and sound protocol. which is so it works on the vagus nerve, which is a brain gut connection, and it stabilizes the student emotionally as well as parents. And for those of you investing in our assessment before the 30th of September, we're actually including that Safe and Sound protocol, which is a $300 investment just as part of the
Oops.
assessment cost, because it's really extremely helpful in that mode. I've on the Facebook page on YouTube, I posted the link to our assessment, more information about our assessment. So sample goals. When we write goals, we want a kid to get excited about something. The kid's delighted to be reading 3 grade levels higher. He's really happy that he's reading 280 words per minute. Okay, he might only be reading 140 now, but it's not uncommon for our kids to improve their reading speed by 50, 75, or even 100%. And by the way, we've had probably hundreds of students improve their performance by 3 grade levels over 4 months. It's not going to happen by just showing up at our place. It takes work, but it's doable. And we've had kids go from 53 to 98s in math. Okay, they go, I want to feel terrific about math, but the kid will say, but I don't know how to do it. Again, I had a student the other day. He went from 5 right on a section of the SAT to 17 right the next time he took the test, because all of a sudden he saw the patterns. He said, this is relatively easy. It's not easy, but it's much easier when
He knows what to look
they're
for.
taught the way you learn best. Okay. And again, the kids can be much happier when they can do their homework independently. They don't want to have to rely on you. They don't want it to take 2.5, 3, 4 hours. They want to get it done independently in much less time. And then this is again the one we always have them write a goal on sports. Okay. I'm ecstatic that I'm hitting 400. I hit 10 home runs. That's huge to a kid who's
Oh,
batted
makes him want to get up and
225.
go to school in the morning, right?
Yeah, because
I can brag about that.
okay. And I feel great about being in class with my friends and being challenged and doing well. That's the kind of things that actually get them excited. And now, what can we do? Okay, you go to our website, 3dlearner.com. We explore your child's strengths and challenges. We have a handout at the bottom of the page where you can get those. And we shift the conversation to what success would look like. And then for those who engage in a conversation, would like to do the assessment, we can move right into that. And what one mom said the other day when I was asking her, what should we share with other parents? She said, it turns out that our process, because she started just before the pandemic started, you were just as effective on Zoom as you were in person, but especially for the kid in 4th grade and above. It works extremely well. And last month we did somebody in Utah, somebody in Alaska. Okay, so we can actually, with the Zoom and the wonders of technology, we can actually assess people.
We do it hands on.
Anywhere where there's
kids.
high-speed internet. Okay, and if you want to talk to us, you can call us.
Please
call us at 561-361-7495, or if you go to 3dlearner.com/book now, you can find a mutually agreeable time to speak with us. And just point of this, okay, again, and we encourage you to go to the 3D Learner YouTube channel. Okay, contact us if you want. And next week we're going to be talking about what you can do when you get negative feedback from school. We've had a number of parents call us already this year. The school said this, the school said that. We say, that's actually exactly what happened to us. We'll go to our story next week in greater detail. It's that pivotal moment when the school says, or psychologists, we've had psychologists say, you're being unrealistic. That's when we want parents to give us a call, because we don't actually claim to be realistic in their vein. We don't think like them. We think it's possible for kids to improve their reading comprehension 2, 3, 4 grade levels. We've had kids who were stuck, 5th grade level in 9th grade, all of a sudden get to 9th grade level. Okay. We've had older kids who were 20, 21 who were reading at the 2nd grade level. We didn't get them to grade level, but we got them to the 5th grade level. Okay. So we can help kids wherever they're at, get to a much better person. And there's no
In
better
a much
time than
better place.
present
Right.
to put your kid on the pathway from stress to outrageous success.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight and on the replays. We look forward to seeing you in future videos. Please don't hesitate to contact us, whichever way works best for you. And if you want to email us or send us messages about what you'd like to be able to have us talk about in the future, we'd love to be able to know that. We wish you all the best.
You
Thanks
can
for joining
email
us
us, by the way, at info at
at
3dlearner.com.
3dlearner.com. Right.
Okay. And just so, because next week's a bit of confusing week for everybody, there's some holidays in there. Next week's going to be on Wednesday, September 28th. Again, 9 p.m. Look
Have
forward
a
to seeing you
wonderful
then.
week. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Bye bye.